This is not your aunt's front-wheel drive Corolla that she takes to Pilates classes at the mall. This is the GR Corolla, and this is perhaps Toyota's most important sports car in a long time. But there's a problem, and one that Toyota probably can't solve. But before we address that, I know you guys want to see what it's like on the track, so let's take it out and go for a drive. So, cameraman Ryan, we're about to set off in the GR Corolla on track. How many cylinders we got in here?
I heard you say 3 earlier, so I'm going to run with 3.
That's right. We got 3. Ryan is not a car guy. We got 3 cylinders. Of course, we're making 300 horsepower, 1.6 liters. Torque comes on at 3,000 RPM. So let's get on track on this core. So I've got everything turned off. I've got this in track mode, 50-50 torque split. So we're coming up in the first corner. Let's see how the brakes are. Light on the brakes. And you know what? If you're looking for something that is above the GR86, I think you're really gonna like this, because this car is very playful. It's got a lot of fun. I can rotate it a little bit. It's a little bit of understeer on turn in, but that's sort of expected in a 50-50 torque split. I was talking to the engineer and he says the way to go is 50-50 on track. 70-30 is gonna give you a little bit better turn in. And this thing actually has a lot of grip. Coming up a little hill here. Let's see how the brakes are. Yeah, the brakes are pretty good. This thing is a pretty enjoyable track car, not gonna lie. This is pretty good if you're looking for something that is a step down from the Supra, step up from the 8.6. This is gonna do it for you. Yeah, there's a lot of grip with these tires. It feels very composed. Everything feels really dialed in. The transmission is really easy to use. Pedal box, really good placement. You can heel and toe very easily. And now we're going to go into a little decreasing radius corner here. Should get some understeer. And we do, but it's not bad. It's not bad. So, cameraman Ryan, what do you think?
Well, by the facial expressions I just made, I'm having a hoot and a half.
I didn't see your face, but
The audience will know.
The audience will know. Cool. When you think of all-wheel drive, you're probably thinking of the RAV4 and perhaps the Toyota 4Runner. This has all-wheel drive, of course, too, and the name for this, the GR4, is actually based on the rally car from the 80s and 90s when Toyota used to race some WRC, and the all-wheel drive system in that was the GT4. So this particular car takes its inspiration from the GR Yaris, which actually Toyota does still use to compete in WRC to this day, and they're actually doing really well right now. Now, unfortunately, Toyota is not gonna let us take this car out in the dirt and slide it around. I don't know what could go wrong, bunch of crazy enthusiasts, white car, but we know that sliding around in the dirt and handling is not the problem. But you know, there are some other dark clouds on the horizon. All right, this is our street drive, which is really just a drive around the racetrack on this ring road here. And so what is this thing gonna be like to drive every day? Well, you're probably not gonna have these slalom cones like this, but I think the ride quality is pretty damn good in here for what it is. It's pretty firmly sprung.
Oh, I love it.
I think you like it. You're a sports car kind of guy.
Oh, yeah.
So, the transmission is really quite easy to use. It does have auto rev matching. I prefer to do it myself. Very easy to rev match. Pedal placement's really good. Steering, it's pretty nice. A lot of feedback in here. I do like the steering rack in here. And you know, on a day-to-day basis, this is gonna be a pretty easy to live with car. Most people aren't gonna be taking it to the track. You can put 4 people in here, probably not 5. Not a lot of cargo space, but overall, I think this is gonna be a pretty useful car. I like the size of it. And you know, this is not anything super fancy. This is pretty much just your regular Corolla in terms of the interior. And I think that's fine. I think these seats are gonna be like pretty good on a long road trip. Very comfortable, very supportive. Everything works really well. The dash has got a nice big display on it. So this is gonna be, like, for a day-to-day usage, pretty good. If you are new to the manual transmission, I think this is gonna be pretty easy to get used to. And this is gonna be great in snow and inclement weather and any sort of bad conditions. I think it's gonna, you know, handle everything really well. So it's pretty good in the street, but you know what? That's not the problem. The problem is bigger, but we'll get to that a little later in the video. Let's talk about the features and specs and the 3 different editions that you can get. I'm gonna go into a fair bit of technical detail here because I know that's what you're looking for. So we've got Core, we've got the Circuit Edition, and we've got the Morizo Edition. In terms of production volume, they are aiming for something less than 5,000 units of Core for the US. I'm not quite sure how much less. They don't really have an exact number. The Circuit Edition is going to be 1,500 units. It's a 1-year only special, one and done. Morizo is 200 units for the first year, and Morizo Edition is going to continue year over year. At the heart of the GR Corolla is the same engine as the GR Yaris, but it's been pumped up a fair bit. So this is a 1.6 liter engine, it's 3 cylinders, and it is a single scroll turbo. I spoke with the engineer and he said that 3 exhaust ports make for the perfect amount of pulses. And we're talking about 300 horsepower across the board. In the Core and the Circuit Edition, you're looking at 273 pound-feet of torque. The torque starts at 3,000 RPM, and actually you can wind the engine out to about 7,000, and it doesn't seem to fall off a whole lot practically driving. Now the Morizo Edition has an additional 22 pound-feet of torque, and so it makes 295 pound-feet of torque, and that comes on at 3,250, so it's a little higher, it's a little bit peakier. Now there is a center drive shaft running from the engine to the rear, and there is a magnetic coupling near the rear, which basically serves as a differential of types. Now the Core Edition starts with open differentials, but you really want to get the LSD, the torsion differentials, which are going to be in the front and the rear, and you can add that in with the performance package, which is about $1,200. And doing that gets you pretty close to what the Circuit Edition is. There's a couple other differences though. It comes on 235/40/18 Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tires. The Core Edition gets a metal roof and an aluminum hood. And the MPG across the board is 21 city, 28 highway, and 24 combined. This is a full-time all-wheel drive system. It only comes with a manual transmission, and the transmission, they spent some time working on it. It really feels good. It feels very positive. The clutch take-up is excellent. And it has a variable adjustable torque split. So driving around day to day, you're gonna drive in your 60/40 torque split. In track mode, it's 50/50. And then there's another sort of track Hoonigan mode, which is 30 front, 70 to the rear. And the specific output of this engine is pretty impressive. It's 188 horsepower per liter, which is the same as the Bugatti Chiron. So really, you're getting a Bugatti Chiron that has just a few less cylinders, and it's a fair bit cheaper. $7,000 RPM. So I'm in the 50/50 torque split right now. So easy to drive. The steering weights up really nicely, so it will understeer a little bit, but it's pretty safe understeer, I would say. It's very easy to control the car. You can slide it around a little bit. It's a very playful kind of car. I really like this. I think Toyota has made what amounts to a fantastic little track day car. It's so much fun to drive this thing. It does have plenty of power, and for everybody that tried to turn their STI into a track car, you can just slide this thing around. It's been really hot today, and we've had no overheating issues at all. People are like pounding on these things, and it seems to be keeping the temperature down pretty nicely. So this is sort of in my opinion, the STI successor. This is an exciting car to drive. You can just probably hear it in my voice right now. It's really fun, but it's also super controllable too. I think it's gonna be difficult for an average person to get into too much trouble with this car at the track. If you want something that's a step up from the GR 8.6, this is gonna be pretty good. Now, you're not gonna sort of hone your driver's skill quite the same way as you would with the 8.6, because this has got all-wheel drive and there's sort of more mechanical stuff, electronic stuff that's kind of keeping you safe. But even with traction control off, I'm not having any trouble controlling this car. It is easy to control, and the dash is really good. The layout's really good. Sounds unique, sounds really good for a 3-cylinder. So I'm gonna do a little lift off throttle here. Oh yeah, you can get this thing sideways. You can totally get it sideways. So let's enter the corner here. You can feel the differential doing some stuff to the steering wheel. I felt it starting to sort of help rotate the car a little bit. So I'm in 70-30 mode right now, where the 70% is going to the rear. You can definitely get it a little bit slidey, although it's hard to get this car really, really loose because of the all-wheel drive system.
I'm just ragdolling it right now.
Are you?
Car.
Yeah, it's a little tough to get it really, really sideways, which is probably good for a lot of drivers, a lot of beginning drivers. All right, that was some serious understeer there. That was bad corner entry on my part. Yeah, it likes to do the lift throttle oversteer, like right there. That's kind of how you get this thing sideways, is just lifting off the throttle a little bit. Kind of fun in that mode, but probably not the quickest mode. You're gonna drive it in track to, to put down the best lap times. So trackability and handling is certainly not the problem with this car. And I promise you, we will get to the problem a little bit later in the video, but I'm liking this. Do I want to buy it?
Now all the editions get the same brakes, so you've got a 4-piston setup up front, they're 14-inch rotors. In the rear, you got a 2-piston setup with 11.7-inch rotors. In the base, you get fabric seats, you get the base cloth interior, and it starts at about $36,000. You need to add on some destination of around $1,100. 0 to 60 is about 5 seconds. This will be available first, and they're aiming for late 2022 to have these at dealers. Now let's talk about the Circuit Edition, which has everything that the Core does, but instead of the regular aluminum hood, now you've got a vented aluminum hood and you get the carbon fiber roof. You also get a rear spoiler on the hatch. This is a pretty light car. It weighs about 3,262 pounds for the Circuit Edition. If you opt for the Core without the limited slips, it's only about 10 pounds difference, surprisingly. The Morizo Edition is lighter. We'll talk about that in a second. You get an upgraded interior with the Circuit Edition. They call it Bryn now, but basically it's sort of an Alcantara suede-like fabric. The seats are very, very good. You get premium audio, and you get an additional color choice, which is heavy metal, which is sort of a light mid-tone gray. That starts at about $43,000 before destination, and they're talking about spring 23 availability. Now the Morizo Edition gets 300 horsepower but 295 pound-feet of torque, and I asked how they do that, and it is essentially with tuning. But there's another important difference in that the Morizo Edition gets lower gearing, so it accelerates a little bit quicker. The final drive ratios in the front and the rear differential are a little bit lower. You get the same carbon fiber roof and the same rear splitter, but the tires go up to 245 40/18, and they are Pilot Sport Cup 2, so they're pretty grippy tires, and that's my experience on track with them. Now the interior is different too. You get unique front seats, and in the rear, you get no seats at all, but you do get a cross brace. And you can get this exclusively in something they call Pearl or Smoke, which is a darker, sort of a matte kind of gray finish. And that is about $50,000 and only 200, unfortunately. 0 to 60, they're quoting at 4.92, so it is a little bit faster, and in my experience on track, it does accelerate a little bit better. The Morizo also gets an upgraded suspension setup. So all these cars come with McPherson-style front struts. In the rear, you've got a double wishbone multi-link, but in the Morizo, you have different springs. They are upgraded, they are a little bit stiffer, and you also get revalved shocks. Probably gonna be fairly firm on the street, but on the track, it is the one. Also, the steering is a little bit different too. In the track mode, you get less boost, and the steering feel is excellent. Now, this is not built on the regular assembly lines around the world, of which they have 3. This is built at the Motomachi plant in Japan. It's a Lexus plant. It's where the LFA was built. It's where the GR Yaris is currently built. They start with the same frame as a regular Corolla, but they add 349 additional weld points for additional stiffness. Then they add about an additional 9 feet of structural adhesive, and it's actually 20 feet for the Morizo Edition. So what actually is that? So Morizo is the alter ego of the president of Toyota. It's Akio Toyoda, and he is the master driver at Toyota and also at Lexus. So he doesn't just sign off in these vehicles, he actually develops them actively with the team and makes them better. And every year he competes in rally, and he competes at 24 Hours of Nürburgring. So he is a pretty hardcore sports car fanatic himself.
So Ryan, we're in the Morizo Edition, and you know what? Something's missing.
What?
The back seat.
Oh.
There's no back seat in this Morizo Edition, and this weighs about 100 pounds less than the other versions. This is, if I remember correctly, around 3185. I might have that wrong, but pretty close to that. So this is a little bit lighter. This has more torque. This has 295 pound-feet of torque. The peak torque is in a tighter zone. It's a little higher up in the rev band. It's from 3,200 to, I think, 5,000, something like that. So it is done with tuning, essentially. And the shocks, the valving is a little bit different than these shocks. So let's see how extra spicy this is. Ooh, it is a little extra spicy. Ooh, this feels more planted. All right, so this suspension damping is definitely stiffer, and I feel like the steering is different too. Yeah, the steering has a little bit of a different feel to it. There's actually more feel in here, and this car is more buttoned down overall. So I'm in 50-50 torque split mode right now, and yeah, you can just go through a corner, apply the power pretty early in a corner. This is definitely, oh, I like this. I like this extra spicy version. A little bit hot into that corner, but that's okay. Yeah, baby. Yeah, this is good. Oh, this is really good. Unfortunately, there's only 200 of these, which is kind of a drag. All right, little understeer there, but I went in way too hot. Yeah. Oh yeah, I like this a lot. Yeah, the steering feel is definitely better in this. That's the thing that I notice. It does have a little bit more torque. The suspension is got sharper valving, so you get a little bit less body motion, and the car just kind of takes a set a little bit better. This is definitely the one to get, in my opinion, if you can get it. Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Spicy, yeah.
Extra spicy. What was your nickname for this car?
The chorizo.
The chorizo edition, extra spicy. No disrespect intended, but this is extra spicy. One thing I noticed about these cars is I found I was driving it pretty quickly within just a couple of laps. We've only had a few laps in these cars. We're getting basically 2-minute laps and we're coming in. And I find it's very quick to get my confidence level up in these cars. They definitely inspire a lot of driver confidence. I think unfortunately with this Morizo edition, with there only being 200, the dealers are gonna have a field day with markups on these, unfortunately. I mean, if you can get one, super awesome.
The GR Corolla really is a special car, especially at this price point. And it doesn't have a lot of problems or a lot of compromises, but there is the one big problem I referenced at the beginning of the video. I don't think Toyota can solve it, and that is the fact that we are entering the end of ICE vehicles. This is a petrol-only powered vehicle. There's no electrification, and that is coming to an end. This is perhaps Toyota's last petrol-only sports car. Sure, they've got some more stuff on the calendar for the GR brand, but I don't think it's going to be a gas-only car. I think this is probably the end of the line, and for that reason, that's what makes this car so special, and that is the big problem that Toyota can't solve. I'm not sure how long this Corolla is going to go, but I fully expect that the next GR product is probably going to have some form of electrification. Now, on the brighter side, Toyota is talking actively about using hydrogen as a fuel source, and the chief engineer is working on a Corolla that they have been racing, which isn't a fuel cell, but they're actually combusting hydrogen. Interesting development, but hydrogen comes with its own set of complications, and there's no real adoption of it right now. So if you're a car enthusiast, you're looking for an all-wheel drive sports car, you don't like Subaru, this is pretty much the only option out there. Yes, the Honda Civic Type R competes in the same price class, but it is front-wheel drive. You've got the VW Golf GTI, more of a luxury car. I think that this GR Corolla is a very special car indeed. The circuit is going to be a little bit difficult to get, having only 1,500 productions. Get the core, add the performance pack, you're going to have the same level of handling, suspension, tuning that you get in the circuit edition. Go to the aftermarket, get yourself a wing, get yourself a hood if you want those things. That's going to be the best value and probably going to be the most obtainable as well. The chief engineer, Naoki Sakamoto, who I was fortunate enough to spend some time with, he is the real deal, guys. He is a true car enthusiast. His team has so much passion and so much drive to make the GR Corolla the best car they can possibly make it. This really is a car by enthusiasts, for enthusiasts. This is not the marketing speak that Toyota told me to say. This is what I actually believe, and we're lucky to get a car like this. So if you enjoy traditional sports cars, you want to get a great one, if you can get a hold of one, I definitely recommend it. I'd like to get one myself, but we'll see how that goes. And I want to thank Toyota for putting together an amazing event at Utah Motorsports Campus. There's another video on screen right now, probably about the GR Corolla. I definitely recommend you click it. My name is Eric. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching.